I always thought roommates were just a means to an end. Share the bills, avoid awkward hallway encounters, and keep to yourself. But then I met Sean and everything changed. It started out like any other Craigslist roommate situation. I had just moved to Minneapolis for a new job, a decently paid but soul-draining junior analyst position. I didn't know anyone in the city, and I sure as hell couldn't afford a one-bedroom on my own. Sean's ad was simple, straightforward. Looking for chill roommate, no drama, must be clean, no MAGA hats. That last line made me laugh out loud. I responded within 5 minutes. When I showed up for the apartment viewing, I wasn't expecting him to open the door shirtless, wearing basketball shorts and a look of mild amusement. He wasn't model gorgeous, but something about him hit hard. Those sleepy brown eyes, the dusting of freckles across his nose, the way his voice came low and easy when he said, "Hey, you must be Mark." I tried not to stare. I failed. We moved in 2 weeks later. The apartment was nothing special. Second floor walk-up, loud radiator, questionable plumbing, but it was ours. Sean was easy to live with. He worked evenings as a line cook and spent his mornings in the gym or sprawled across the couch watching anime. I worked 9 to 5 and came home to leftovers and the occasional weed-scented living room. We didn't talk much at first, just short exchanges about rent or groceries, but somehow, slowly, we started orbiting each other more closely. It was the little things. The way he always made extra food when he cooked, even if I hadn't asked. The way he'd knock softly before entering my room to borrow headphones or a charger. The way he'd toss me a beer when I got home from a rough day without saying anything. And then came the night that set everything in motion. It was a Friday. I'd just gotten dumped. 3 months of dating a guy named Tyler who ghosted me after I mentioned, stupidly, maybe wanting something more serious. I was pissed off, sad, and very, very drunk. Sean found me curled up on the couch with a half-finished bottle of tequila and a rewatch of The Office playing in the background. "Jesus, man," he said, stepping over my shoes to take the bottle from my hand. "You okay?" I don't remember everything I said. Something about love being a scam, my taste in men being trash, and possibly something about dying alone in a one-bedroom with only a succulent to mourn me. What I do remember is that Sean didn't laugh. He didn't roll his eyes or make a joke. He just sat next to me, his shoulder brushing mine, and said, "That guy's an idiot." I scoffed. "You don't even know him." "I know you," he said, "and you're not hard to like." That line hung in the air longer than it should have. I turned to look at him. He was staring at the TV, but his hand was resting dangerously close to my thigh. Close enough that I could feel the heat of it. "Thanks," I mumbled, but I didn't move away. The silence grew thick. Not awkward, just heavy, charged. Then he stood up like he was snapping himself out of something. "You should drink some water," he said over his shoulder, and disappeared into his room. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. I didn't sleep much that night. I lay in bed with the ceiling fan spinning lazily above me, my mind replaying every second of what had happened, or almost happened, on that couch. The way Sean's voice had dropped when he said I wasn't hard to like. The way his hand hovered so close to mine. The way he bolted like he was afraid he might actually act on something. I kept telling myself it was the tequila, the dim lighting, the weird tension that sometimes settles in the air between two people who've been coexisting in close quarters too long. But that explanation didn't stick. When I woke up the next morning, hungover and slightly embarrassed, I braced myself for awkwardness. I half expected him to avoid me for the rest of the weekend. Maybe pretend like nothing happened, maybe it was nothing. But when I walked into the kitchen, Sean was already there, shirtless again, flipping eggs on the stove like we were in some domestic sitcom. "Morning, sunshine," he said without looking up. "You looked like you wrestled a ghost last night." I laughed, despite myself. Felt like one too. He slid a plate across the counter. "Eat. You'll feel human again." I took the plate, my fingers brushing his for the briefest moment. No reaction. Just cool, neutral Sean. So, I started, cautiously. "About last night." He didn't look at me. "What about it?" I hesitated. "You said something. About me not being hard to like. He nodded, flipping another egg. Yeah, still true, I blinked. Oh. Silence stretched between us, the only sound, the soft sizzle of the pan. You ever think about it? He asked suddenly, still not facing me. About what? He turned then, finally meeting my eyes. About us. I don't know. Something more than just roommates. That hit harder than anything he could have said. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Forget it, he added quickly. I'm not trying to make things weird. It's just, I've been thinking. And last night, seeing you like that, I just wanted to say something. I took a long sip of orange juice, trying to ground myself. You're not making it weird, I said. I've thought about it too. Sean raised an eyebrow, like he hadn't expected me to say that. But you're straight, I added, trying not to sound bitter or defensive. He smirked. I thought I was. That sentence lodged itself in my chest like a stone. The rest of the day passed in this strange limbo, quiet, heavy, loaded with words left unsaid. We didn't talk much, but we didn't avoid each other either. Sean played music in his room. I pretended to work on my laptop, but mostly just stared at the screen, scrolling without seeing anything. That night, we didn't speak about it again. But when I went to bed, I left my door open. I left the door open on purpose. Not wide, just a little, enough for him to know. Enough to say, if you want to come in, you can. But nothing happened, not at first. I lay there staring at my phone, pretending to scroll, while my ears tracked every creak in the hallway, every footstep from the living room, every opening and closing cabinet. At one point, I heard the shower run, then silence, then his door close. I gave up around 1 a.m., tossing my phone to the side and pulling the covers over my head. Stupid. I was being stupid. But then I heard it. Soft steps, that pause just outside my door. My heart jumped into my throat. A second passed, then two, then the door creaked open. I didn't move. I kept my eyes closed, pretending I was already asleep. My breathing shallow. Too aware. He didn't say anything. I felt the mattress shift as he sat on the edge of my bed. I could smell him, his soap, the faint citrus and cedar of whatever body wash he used, still lingering on his skin. My pulse was slamming in my ears. He didn't touch me. Not right away. His weight shifted again. Then, slowly, his legs swung up onto the bed, and he lay down beside me. Not under the covers, not close, but there. There. Neither of us said a word. Then, tentatively, like it wasn't the first time he'd thought about it, his foot brushed mine. Just a light touch. Then again. Then it stayed. I cracked one eye open. Sean was lying flat on his back, eyes closed, arms crossed over his chest like he was trying to pretend this was the most casual thing in the world. But I could see it in the way his jaw tensed, the way his toes curled slightly against mine. I couldn't sleep, he whispered. Yeah, I replied, just as quiet. Me neither. A pause. Then, is this okay? I turned toward him slightly, the sheet rustling between us. Yeah, I said, it's okay. He let out a breath I didn't know he was holding. We didn't say anything else. Not that night. But we stayed like that, barely touching, feet tangled under the blanket like two teenagers, too scared to admit they were falling. And somewhere between my nerves and his quiet breathing, I fell asleep. I woke up to the smell of bacon and the low hum of jazz filtering in from the kitchen. For a moment I forgot where I was. Then I looked over and saw the faint imprint of where he had been. The other half of the bed was empty, still warm. The sheet was slightly crumpled. His pillow had a faint dent. He'd left before I woke up. Part of me wondered if he regretted it, if he'd slipped back to his room like a kid caught sneaking out. But when I walked into the kitchen, groggy and sleep-tousled, Sean was there like it was any other Saturday morning, whisking eggs, barefoot, hair messy, in that old black hoodie he always wore when he didn't want to be noticed. Morning, he said without turning around. Morning, I replied, quieter than I meant to. He plated the eggs, handed me a fork, then sat across from me at the small kitchen table like everything was fine. Like we didn't just sleep in the same bed. Like his foot didn't curl around mine sometime around 3 a.m. I wanted to say something. Ask what that night meant. If it meant anything. But the air between us was weirdly calm. Like we were both pretending it hadn't happened, and neither of us wanted to be the one to break the spell. We ate in silence for a few minutes. Then he said, "You ever been to that diner down by Lyndale?" I blinked. "What? That one with the neon sign that flickers? We should go sometime. They have this stupid good apple pie." I nodded, slowly. "Sure." He looked at me then. Really looked. "Last night, I didn't cross a line, right?" I set my fork down. "No, you didn't." He nodded once. "Okay." We didn't talk about it again. Not directly. But that afternoon, when we both ended up on the couch watching a dumb sci-fi movie, he sat closer than usual. When he passed me the popcorn, his hand lingered on mine for just a second too long, and when I went to bed that night, I didn't leave the door open. He came in anyway. This time, he didn't sneak in. I was brushing my teeth when I heard the soft knock, barely more than a tap. When I opened the door, Sean was standing there in gym shorts and a plain white tee, barefoot, looking strangely unsure of himself. "Hey," he said, "hey." He scratched the back of his neck. I was gonna just watch something. Didn't feel like being alone. That okay?" I stepped aside, heart thumping. "Yeah, that's okay." He didn't bring a blanket. He didn't bring snacks. Just himself. And when he sat on the edge of my bed like he had the night before, there was a kind of tension there that wasn't nervous anymore. It was quiet, but not shy, like we both knew something had shifted. We just hadn't said it out loud yet. I climbed into bed and clicked the TV on, mostly for noise. Some random documentary flickered to life. Neither of us were watching it. He lay down again, closer this time, not touching, but almost. It was a slow drift, like the tide, like he was testing the current. His hand brushed mine once, then again, then stayed. I turned my palm up, gave him the smallest nod, and he threaded his fingers through mine. We stayed like that for a long time, barely breathing. I don't know how long it took, but eventually his fingers shifted, sliding gently against mine, his thumb tracing soft, aimless lines across the back of my hand, the kind of touch you don't give a friend, the kind that's meant to be felt. He leaned in just a little, his voice low, soft. "Can I?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. His lips brushed mine, tentative at first. A question, not a statement. But when I didn't pull away, he leaned in again, firmer this time, slower. And it hit me then. This wasn't just a hookup. This wasn't curiosity or late-night loneliness. This was something else. The way he kissed me, it was unhurried, careful, like he'd been thinking about it for a while but didn't want to mess it up. And then his hand slid to my cheek, holding me there like I might vanish. We didn't go further that night, not really. But when he finally pulled away, his forehead rested against mine and he whispered, "I don't know what this is yet, but I want to find out." And I whispered back, "Yeah, me too." It's weird how nothing and everything changes all at once. The next morning we woke up in the same bed, clothes on, limbs tangled, sunlight creeping in through the blinds like it didn't care that our world had quietly shifted overnight. Sean was still asleep, his chest rising and falling steadily beside me. I watched him for a few seconds, trying to process what we'd done, what it meant. I wasn't nervous, just aware, like I'd stepped over some invisible threshold I couldn't walk back through. And I didn't want to. He woke up maybe 10 minutes later, blinking groggily, then smiling when he saw me still there. He didn't say anything at first, just slid his arm over my waist and buried his face in my shoulder like he'd done it 100 times before. It felt natural, too natural. Around noon, he asked if I wanted to grab lunch. Just like that. No big moment, no "we need to talk." Just a casual, "You hungry?" Like we were picking up exactly where we'd left off. We went to a taco truck down the block, a place we both loved but hadn't been to in weeks. We ordered the usual carnitas for him, lengua for me, and sat outside on the little bench near the alley, watching the world roll by like it didn't know something was different. For a while, we talked about everything except what had happened. Sports, rent, how he burned the last batch of rice. But the air between us was lighter now, more open. Then, halfway through his second taco, Sean looked up and said, "I didn't sleep with you last night because I was bored." I blinked. "Okay," he shrugged. "I just want you to know that. I wasn't testing something out or trying to prove anything. It's not some phase." I looked at him, at the way his eyes stayed locked on mine, even when he was clearly nervous. "I didn't think it was," I said quietly. We sat there in silence for a minute, chewing. Then he nudged my leg with his. "You want to do something dumb? Define dumb. Like go to the sculpture park, get ice cream. Act like two guys who are figuring out what the hell this is." I grinned. "Yeah, I do." So we went. Walked through the park like nothing had changed. Like everything had. We didn't hold hands, not yet. But his shoulder bumped mine a little more often than usual, and at one point he looked over and just smiled. Not in that cocky, half-aware way he used to, but soft. Like he was letting something real show for once. When we got back that night, we both paused in the doorway like we were waiting to see who'd say it first. Sean scratched the back of his neck. "You still cool if I crash in your room again?" "Yeah," I said, "but you can stop asking." And that night, when he crawled into bed beside me, he didn't hesitate before curling around me. And I didn't hesitate before letting him. It had been almost 2 weeks of this. Quiet nights, soft kisses, shared breakfasts, and mornings where neither of us wanted to leave the bed. We hadn't labeled anything. There were no big talks or confessions. Just this growing thing between us that felt more solid with every day. But then came the night we went out with his friends. Sean had a core group from the restaurant, mostly other cooks and bartenders, loud and rowdy, and always a little drunk. They met every Thursday after the dinner rush at a dive bar a few blocks away. He asked if I wanted to come along. "You don't have to," he said while brushing his hair in the mirror, like it wasn't a big deal. "But I think it'd be cool if you did." I said yes. Of course I did. The bar was dimly lit and smelled like old beer and fryer grease, and the music was too loud for the space. I stood at the edge of the group at first, unsure where I fit in, but Sean pulled me in by the wrist and introduced me like it was nothing. "This is Mark," he said, "my roommate." That word. Roommate. It shouldn't have hit as hard as it did, but it did. He didn't say it with air quotes or a knowing look, just roommate. Like that was still all I was. I tried not to read into it. Tried. Later, when we were a few drinks in and the group had splintered into pockets of conversation, I was leaning against the bar when one of Sean's coworkers, this guy named Dylan with sleeve tattoos and a permanent smirk, sidled up beside me. "So," he said, swirling the ice in his whiskey. "You and Sean, huh?" I blinked. "What?" he smirked. "Don't worry, I've got eyes. I've seen the way you two look at each other. Plus, he stopped flirting with the hostess last week. That's saying something." I laughed nervously. "We're just hanging out." "Sure," Dylan said, clearly not buying it. "He looks at you like you matter. That's rare for him." I didn't know what to say to that. On the walk home, it was just the two of us again. The air was cool, and our steps echoed down the empty sidewalk. "Your friends are cool," I said, breaking the silence. "Yeah?" Sean glanced at me. "Dylan didn't hit on you, did he?" "No, just noticed some things." Sean was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I never wanted to hide you, I've never really done this before." I nodded. "I get it." But he stopped walking, turned to face me. "No, I mean it. I like what we have. I don't want to screw it up by rushing, or by pretending it's not real." I stared at him. "So what is it?" His hand slipped into mine. "This," he said. "Whatever we're doing, I want to keep doing it." And right there, on that quiet street, he kissed me. Not just a soft, uncertain kiss like before, but something firmer, more certain. Like he was answering a question I hadn't fully asked. When we got back to the apartment, I didn't close the door behind us. I locked it. No good thing stays perfect forever. I guess I always knew that, but I wasn't ready for how much it would shake me when it happened. It started small. A missed text. Then a night where he stayed late at work and didn't tell me. Then a Saturday he said he'd be around, but bailed to help a friend move without a word. By Sunday night, I was sitting alone on the couch, reheating leftover pad thai, and watching the blue ticks on my last message stay unread. He walked in close to midnight, tired and sweaty, dropping his keys in the bowl by the door like nothing was wrong. "Hey," he said casually, kicking off his shoes. I stared at him. "You didn't think to check your phone?" He looked at me, confused. "What?" I texted. Twice. "Oh," he said, pulling his shirt over his head. "Sorry. Dylan needed help. I didn't think." "Exactly. You didn't think." That made him pause. "Okay, what's going on? You keep doing this, leaving me out of your day. Not telling me where you are, what's going on, like I'm just whatever. A guy who sleeps in your bed but doesn't get to ask questions." His jaw tightened. "It's not like that, isn't it?" He exhaled, rubbed his hands over his face. "Mark, I've never done this before, all right? I'm trying, but I need space sometimes." I laughed, bitter. Space? Or deniability? That hit a nerve. He stepped back, his voice going cold. "You think I'm ashamed of you? I think you're not sure what this is, and you act like I'm supposed to be okay waiting for you to figure it out." Silence. Then he said, "Maybe we rushed into this." The words landed like a punch. "Right," I said, standing. "Maybe we did." I walked past him without another word, locked myself in my room, and tried not to cry like a middle schooler after their first breakup. I didn't sleep that night. I listened to every creak of the floorboards, every soft noise through the paper-thin walls, hoping he'd come knock, that he'd say he was sorry, that he still wanted this. But he didn't. And when morning came, the apartment felt like two different planets sharing the same orbit. 3 days passed. We didn't talk. We barely even looked at each other. He came home late every night, left early every morning. I kept to my room. The silence between us was the kind that hurts more than shouting ever could. Heavy, dense, like it was pushing the walls farther apart. By the fourth night, I'd had enough. I started packing. It wasn't dramatic, just slow and quiet. Folded some clothes into a duffel, gathered my chargers, took the mug I always used out of the kitchen cabinet. I wasn't sure where I was going, just that I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Then I heard the front door, his footsteps, keys on the counter, the pause. "Mark?" I didn't answer. A second later, he was in the doorway of my room. His face changed when he saw the bag on the bed. "You leaving?" I kept folding. "Figured I'd give you the space you clearly need." He stepped in, closed the door behind him. "Don't do that." I turned. "Do what? Leave? Be honest?" He looked at me for a long time, then sat down, hands clasped between his knees like he didn't know what to do with them. "I freaked out," he said. "No kidding." He nodded. "I've spent so long being one version of myself. And then you show up, and suddenly I'm waking up next to someone who actually makes me feel safe. And that scared the hell out of me. I didn't say anything. I didn't know how to be in something that felt real," he added. "So I pulled back, like an idiot." "You didn't just pull back, Sean," I said quietly. "You left me guessing, like I didn't matter." He stood. You do matter. More than I thought someone could." That stopped me. He stepped closer. "I've been thinking about it every day, about how easy it was to fall into this with you. How much I missed it the second you started pulling away too." I looked at him, heart pounding. He reached for my hand. "Please don't go. I want to do this right. If that means taking it slow, fine. If it means screwing up sometimes but figuring it out together, even better. But I don't want to lose this. Lose you." There was nothing grand about the moment. No sweeping gesture. Just two tired people standing in a room full of half-packed bags and unspoken feelings. But it felt real, and that was enough. I didn't leave. Instead, I unpacked slowly while he watched from the bed, like he was afraid I'd change my mind. That night, I crawled into his room, not mine, and he pulled me in like he wasn't going to let me go again. And from that day on, we weren't just roommates who blurred the lines. We were us,